Welcome, friends. I'm Fred Krasey from FKC Health, and today I have a very interesting man with me, Matt Bull. He's a podiatrist from Up and Running Podiatry, and I encountered Matt through my own requirements where I needed some podiatry stuff and some new footwear to work out my distorted body. Matt, why podiatry? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, look, I think probably not realizing it at the time when I first looked into podiatry, but now being a qualified podiatrist, we're in a very fortunate position where we can positively and often quite profoundly impact somebody's life. So, that can be from some of the simple treatments that we can perform in the room, as simple as kind of skin and nail care, right through to, as you said, kind of my niche, and that's sports podiatry and injury management. And, really enjoy working with clients to identify their goals, figure out what their problem is, and, what are the steps that it's going to take to allow them to achieve it. So, yeah, that's my beginning.
Mm-hmm. I notice also that you're a keen triathlete and you're running story. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's been a little bit more of a recent thing for me. Kind of grew up playing a lot of footy and cricket all through my junior years, and kind of continued on to that into, kind of early senior years. But it was probably because of my interest in podiatry and running injuries that I was getting quite a lot of runners coming through the clinic and training for the Melbourne Marathon and various Melbourne-based running events. And here I was, handing out this advice and this information, but kind of, I guess, felt a little bit like an imposter almost, because I hadn't actually been there and done it myself. I always thought, that running a marathon, that's something that I'll do one day. And then I just, the years kind of rolled by, and I think it was at age 25 or 26 when I decided, no, look, yeah, definitely going to, kind of put my money where my mouth is, and signed up to do the Melbourne Marathon, and made every training error under the book, got injured, hobbled to the start line with a few cortisone injections in me. So, it was kind of that journey and realizing what it's like to be pushing towards a goal, but then only to have kind of injury set you back, that, really only kind of fueled the fire for sports podiatry even more so. After doing a couple of marathons, I kind of, swayed back and forth between triathlon and cricket. But it's been in kind of the last 3 to 4 years where I've really just focused on endurance sports. And I've got kind of 4 marathons under my belt now, an Ironman triathlon, few half Ironman triathlons, and a 100-kilometer ultra as well. So,
okay, whoa. You got any feet left after that?
My feet took a bit of a battering, actually. It was quite funny. I don't know what it was, and as a podiatrist, I probably should, but I did have an allergic reaction to something causing my feet to swell and a few hives to pop up. So, we couldn't quite put our finger on that one, but the feet were feeling a little bit worse for wear after that event, that's for sure.
Well, this is a bit of a testimony to you that I'm offering for the listeners. I was referred to you by Jake Holness, who is our exercise physiologist at Sage. And I came to you, I already had another podiatrist from somewhere else, but I came to you under that recommendation, and you have revolutionized my life. For those of you who don't know, if you've got some skeletal issues with your frame structure, it can travel from your feet all the way up into your back and your shoulders and your neck, and it can really wreak havoc. And I was born with a deformity in the twist of my legs, and footwear and running and all that sort of stuff has been a nightmare for me. So much so I don't run. I hate running. Running's not my thing. You'll be pleased to know, Matt, since I've had these runners, I've been walking 10K per day, 5 days a week. That's 50K. And I've been doing up to 25 50 to 100 meter sprints inside that 10K And for the first time in my life, I'm running and enjoying that. And because of the runners you sent me to the right people for, and the inserts you've put in, I'm not having knee, ankle, or feet problem that I had before, or even lower back. So I find you amazing, and I just say to people out there, don't underestimate podiatry. It's amazing. So tell me, how has COVID changed the way you see clients, with all this interactive and Zoom? What's happening there? Because usually with podiatry, you've got to be there.
Well, yeah, good point. I might touch on yourself, Freddie. I think it's also a credit to you as well, is that we often get referrals from patients that potentially tried some other services, and not just podiatry specific, but I guess having my own business, or in partnership with another podiatrist, Gary Johnston, we've clearly identified what our goal and our mission as a business is, and we've structured the company in a way that affords us the time to be able to spend extra time with our clients, to be able to really touch on what's important to them. And obviously we had those conversations when you were in the room, and we're able to identify some of your goals, and obviously link that in with your kind of past history of injuries. So getting feedback like what you've just described there, mate, is that's exactly why we do what we do, particularly at Up and Running. So our mission is simply to educate people how to move and feel better. And I think with yourself, you were in a position where you had fantastic therapists around you. Is the education component was there from other practitioners, and it was just linking that in with your foot mechanics essentially. And as you said, your feet are that first point of contact with the ground. So, if there's a few alignment issues there, then it can have effects more proximally through the ankle, knee, and hip, and even up into the lower back. So, I think credit to the therapist that you also had around you as well, is that podiatry is only one piece of the puzzle. You're very diligent with your strength work and working with Jake and the other therapists that you have around you. Is, without those other guys, then the work that we do from the foot up, has a limit. I think it has a ceiling. Getting to your next question with regards to COVID, I think the answer is we've seen a lot more in the way of clients coming through, which is I guess, we've been under restriction at certain times, where we've had to limit some of the clients and kind of, really focus on more emergency care type scenarios. But I think during the times where we have opened, we have seen a real influx of not only our old clients coming back, but a lot of new clients. And I think COVID has a lot to do with that, but perhaps not how some people might think. And I'll use the example of, people who train in a gym, or they might train in a high intensity environment like an F45 or similar. You also can add in your swimmers and your golfers to that. And all of a sudden, all these people who had different means of being able to be physically active had a lot of that taken away from them.
Yeah, that's right.
And a lot of, or pretty much one of the only activities that was left, well, from what I understand with my bike mechanic, bike sales have gone through the roof. So they've said they've already had 2 Christmases kind of worth of trade this year, which is great for them. But the other activities are walking and running. And I think a lot of people who do work out in that gym style format, they're used to beating their body up. They're used to getting in and doing a 30 or 40 minute workout and pushing quite hard with that. They then approach a jog or a run with that same ferocity. And unfortunately, if you're not conditioned to being able to do it, then the tolerance of your tissues, so your bone and soft tissue, muscles, tendon, ligaments, and so forth, isn't necessarily going to be up to tolerating that load. So, a lot of what we've seen through COVID really falls under the banner of too much too soon. So it's people that have great intent, because there's also the mental, health and well-being that comes from getting out and exercising, getting an endorphin hit. But what we were finding is that a lot of people were going from, they might be a 5,000 step person a day to all of a sudden they're doing 20,000 steps a day. And that changed in the space of a week, when all of a sudden, that 1 hour of exercise that we did have was so important. So In those scenarios, while foot posture and mechanics and running technique do still play a part in the onset of injury, largely it's due to fundamental training errors and just doing a little bit too much and basically exceeding the body's threshold for injury.
Yeah. Well, I know that having, you mentioned all the practitioners I have. Well, I'm basically got like a Formula One team, a chiropractor, a podiatrist, I've got exercise physiologist, I have a personal trainer, a holistic health coach, a nutritionalist, and a doctor. Why have I gone to that extent? I'm passionate to be able to provide our listeners and my marketplace what I consider really good information. And in isolation, one practitioner of one modality is not enough. And I know that you're quite learned and you've had to go and seek these practitioners for your own life and your own self. So tell me, what is the most common, say, injuries in sports and running? What's common in podiatry for that?
Yeah, good question. I think probably tendon pain would be the biggest one, and particularly looking at the COVID situation at the moment. If we're focusing on running injuries in particular, to be a good running sports podiatrist, you need to be across tendon pain and bone health. I think they're the two tissues within the body that can be adversely affected if you load up too quickly. And by load, I'm not just talking about the total distance that you run, but the intensity of those sessions. And that again comes back to the COVID stuff, is going out and pushing your body hard each time you run, places a lot of stress and strain on those structures. So using the Achilles tendon as an example, if we go out for a run or a jog, we're probably on average putting about 3 to 3.5 times our body weight through our feet. Now, the way the Achilles tendon works is that it is stretched as your body weight moves over the ankle, and then we get this contraction and a release of energy. So it's something that's called a stretch shortening cycle. And if we get an overload of that stretch shortening cycle, that's where injury will occur. So being able to, one, identify those training errors that may have led to that overload is really important. But then we need to approach our treatment almost from two different perspectives. We need to look at the characteristics that are going to regenerate the health of that tendon. So we're looking at, things like strength programs, shockwave therapy to increase blood flow and decrease pain. So there's looking at the actual health of the tendon itself and how we can improve that. But then there's a second component where we're looking to decrease the load that's being applied to a given structure. In circumstances where a foot posture may not have been the exact reason for the onset of the pain, it might have been, again, as a result of training errors. But if somebody does have a foot type that puts extra strain on the Achilles tendon, then maybe in the short to medium term, there's an opportunity for us to come in from a podiatry level to support the foot to try and reduce that load while we focus on those structures to get the health of the tendon back to what it was.
So what would you say the most common condition you treat is?
Most common would be probably plantar fasciitis. Or plantar fasciosis. Yeah. Yes, good question. So basically the plantar fascia is a piece of connective tissue underneath the sole of the foot. It attaches from the heel. Actually, I've got my foot bones here, so I might grab those out.
I was going to say that sounded like a Mary Poppins illness.
No, not quite, mate. But yeah, look, it's one of those ones that if you've Googled heel pain, we do get patients that are come in and go, I think I've got that plantar something, and I'll go plantar fasciitis. And yeah, basically it's a band of connective tissue that runs the length of the foot. So it attaches from the heel and goes down to attach to the toes.
Yeah, got it.
And its role is to basically stabilize the height of the arch. So in cases where that tissue is under extra tension, it can become overloaded. And where the term plantar fasciitis is a little bit misleading is that itis implies inflammation. And we will see inflammation of the surrounding structures, but the plantar fascia itself, it actually becomes thickened rather than inflamed. So we see kind of, if we think of collagen is the connective tissue that really, I guess gives the tendon or the plantar fascia its strength. And what we see with plantar fasciitis is this thickening and enlargement of that tendon and an increased amount of water uptake. And that can kind of reduce the stiffness of the tissue and can often equal pain and discomfort. So that'd be the number one thing that we see through the clinic doors, because it's painful, it's debilitating, and it can sometimes be quite tricky to treat.
Okay, and what key tips do you have for runners that could prevent these sort of injuries?
Yeah, look, good question. I think so if we look at plantar fasciitis for an example, the number one thing, and I guess this comes back to being a bit of a key theme through our discussion already, is the load versus capacity model. So if we think about every tissue in the body having a threshold for injury, and let's just say my hypothetical hand position is that threshold, what we want to be doing each time we train is we want to be stressing just above the threshold of that tissue so it becomes a little bit stronger, and then just above it again and a little bit stronger. If our threshold for injury is here and we go out and do a whole heap of work that we're not accustomed to, this is the zone where injury will occur. So that is definitely the biggest thing with runners, is that when you're building up, you need to build your tolerance. So we need to really allocate, and to do this safely and appropriately, we really need to allocate about 6 to 8 weeks of easy paced running to allow those tendons and tissues within the body to slowly adapt to the training load and volume so that they start to get stronger. The problem is that a lot of people decide that they want to run and they want to get out there and they go, all right, like they're motivated, they're energetic, and it's in the first week, I'm going to go down to the local footy oval and I'm going to do, 400 meter laps of the oval as hard as I can with, a couple of minutes break in between. If you're not somebody who is used to tolerating that load, that fast-paced running where we are putting a lot more stress and strain through our bodies, then that's where injury can occur. So we really do need that transitional period and taking it quite slow. So for a beginner runner, my best advice would be having a day's break in between your runs to allow time for that tissue to recover. So you'd be looking at starting with maybe 3, potentially progressing to 4 after a few weeks runs a week. But the importance of that run in between the sessions is almost to allow yourself to check in with your body. You generally, if you've got a little bit of a niggle, it may not present while you're running and while you're active. It's typically the morning after, and that's what I look for as a practitioner. If we're getting that morning after pain, then that's a sign that we're doing too much, and then that's when we can kind of scale back a program or the amount that we're doing. To try and make sure that pain doesn't progress or get any worse. So probably number one would be allocate a day's break in between your runs. Number 2 is do your easy runs easy. And this kind of, again, comes back to some of the stuff we've spoken about, but a lot of people fall into this gray area where they're going out and stressing their body at a moderate to high intensity heart rate each time they go out. And it's very difficult for your body to recover from that repeated, moderate to high intensity effort. So the way we function as endurance athletes is to make sure that when we are going out and doing an easy session, it's at a very, very low heart rate that allows us to recover better in between those sessions. So we'd be looking at a day's break in between. Slowing down is the biggest one, just to make sure that you're recovering better in between those sessions. And probably my third tip would be consult a running coach or a health practitioner. I think the education that somebody, and seek out the right person as well. This is what I love about like my job now, is that people like yourself do get referred to me, and then others will kind of seek out a running-based podiatrist who, it's not to say we've got the runs on the board, but when you're passionate about it and you live and breathe it and you've had injuries yourself, yes, I can speak to somebody as a podiatrist to give my best professional opinion, but I can also share my personal experience as well. And with plantar fasciitis, I've had it 3 times. So,
yeah, okay.
You know, even the best of us can still make errors in your training where you can, be on the sidelines for a period of time. So I'm able to share those personal experiences and look back on the errors that I've made myself, and then the rehab that I put in place to get better. Now, that's not going to be appropriate for everybody, but just sharing that personal journey allows me to probably connect a little bit better with the clients that are also in the same position.
Wow, there's a lot there, Matt. You know, like, people don't understand that there's so many angles to come to when you're dealing with health. Like, part of the tips for any sports orientated person is get sleep. You know, if you're not getting your 8 hours sleep and you start pushing yourself through these barriers, you're going to injure yourself. And nutrition is important. Now, as a senior, I'm headed up to 68 in February. I'm no spring chicken anymore. But for me, bone density and bone mineral content is very important. So I find that part of this whole health and implementation of your sports engagement is the heavy lifting for seniors is important, so that the bone density is there. Now, why I've considered the running, I never could have considered it before you put these orthotics in my new runners. And I got the ones that weren't so trendy, that were wider girth, but I'm no longer tripping. I'm no longer twisting my ankle. And now that I'm running, which I never dreamed of or thought I could do, I'm starting to realize those shin splints, the impact is actually helping me through that stresses get the bone density. So what you're saying is really blowing my mind, because it's filling my awareness out in yet another area that I've only, how long have I known you? 3 or 4 months, something like that?
Yeah, about that, I think, yeah.
Yeah, 3 or 4 months. So in that time, you've begun to powerfully educate me on self-care and on maintenance that I can consider sports, because one of my ambitions is to be a mature age athlete. My father was swimming till he was 91. He died at 97. At 91, he won 4 world championships and a couple of national ones. At 88, he could do a somersault off the side of the pool. And he was just an amazing man. He could swim the whole length of the pool and 3/4 of the way back, 1 breath underwater. Now, here's an inspiration.
He's got me covered then, mate. I still can't even tumble turn.
and you've inspired me, because you've weaved in a lifestyle with your business, that the business and what you do as a podiatrist supports your running. And of course, the running gives you so much backdrop to bring back to podiatry, so you can recognize stuff that's going on for people. I find that what you've got to offer is so profound, and that's why I want to join the show, that people who are unaware of podiatry or they haven't come across it yet, they should really look into it as part of their maintenance, as part of their setup, because they're going to get another 5, 10, 15, 20% leverage in their sport, and they're just their well-being from being firmed up from the ground up. So what's your thoughts on that?
That's why I wanted to come on. I think podiatry is a bit of a hidden gem within the healthcare industry. If you think about like how even health funds are marketed on TV advertising, it's physio, chiro, dental. They're always linked together. The poor old podiatrist, the poor old myotherapist, you know, we don't really get a mention. And I think it's something that we as professionals have to be responsible for. It's all well and good to say, oh, you know, we don't get the recognition, but I think, you know, taking opportunities like this to actually get out and speak to a broader audience, I think is really, really important, because the harsh reality is probably 1 in 2 people don't know what a podiatrist does. So, you know, taking every opportunity to educate and really promote what we do is exciting. Like, I think it's something that certainly over probably the last 5 years of my career, as we've certainly, you know, really kind of scaled up our business, I've been a lot more aware of self-promotion, but not from an individual point of view, from a profession point of view, as a business point of view. And I'm very confident now saying that, we do help people. And, as you've kind of described yourself, sometimes podiatry can be that missing link. I think we also, I think probably one of my strengths as a health professional is also knowing when to put my hand up and to refer on to somebody else. I do think that probably there's a bit of a misconception out there, and probably podiatrists have brought this upon themselves, is, oh no, I don't want to go and see the podiatrist because I'm just going to get an orthotic. Well, as we've spoken about, like, the orthotic is only going to be one small part of an overall management plan, even if it's required at all. I don't have orthotics in my shoes at the moment. I ran in them this morning, but I don't have them on now. So they don't need to be used, as this kind of magic wand that you need to be reliant on, and you need to be, spending all your day in this, kind of artificial support. In some cases, absolutely, that's going to be appropriate, and perhaps even yourself, where there are a few kind of alignment and overload issues, that having that additional support there can work. But I think we've got to really advocate for the other things that we can do as podiatrists, the strengthening and the rehabilitation, the physical therapies, foot mobilization, manipulation, trigger point dry needling. There is a lot of stuff that we can look at to help settle down an aggravated site, help people get out of pain, build a rehabilitation program to not only allow them to get better, but to help avoid injury moving forward. And touching on like the running and linking that into the business model. And runners are probably my favorite population to work with, because they're so invested in getting better and seeking improvement and making themselves more resistant to injury, so that if they do find themselves, in a position down the track in a couple of months' time where they've got a little bit of a niggle, they've got a strength program that they can fall back on, because I think everybody probably drops away from that from time to time. But I do think that, I guess the importance of that education component, and building not just a treatment plan in the short term, but a long and sustainable health strategy to prevent further injury and kind of maximize performance. So, yeah.
Wow. You're a wealth of information there, and I think that people are going to be looking into a lot of different modalities through what we're offering through the channel. We've got a very wide spread where this goes out through a lot of portals, and then of course when you see it on your LinkedIn and Facebook, you can just share it out as well. But the real issue is raising consciousness and awareness about health. And I noticed that you have some gym equipment so you can give people some exercise tuition as well. You're not claiming to be an exercise physiologist, but the very relatable exercises to a specific injury or weakness or strengthening. And I would just encourage people to seek Matt out for some advice, just some insights, and then maybe even get an assessment. It's not expensive. And once they've had an assessment, they may or may not do something with it, but their awareness about it will increase. And it may prevent an injury, or it may give them an edge on the sport or their goals. So that's what I was thinking. Matt, tell me, obviously people will want to contact you. How do people get in touch with you?
Our website, upandrunningpodiatry.com.au. We've got online bookings available, and it's not just myself at the business. We've got 5 key skilled podiatrists, and all of us have a very similar interest. I think we're podiatrists, but we're probably athletes first and then podiatrists second. We've all got varying kind of sporting backgrounds, and I think like attracts like, and I think that's what we've done at our business. Is people see the types of clients that we're working with, and yeah, like the more kind of sports oriented podiatry cohort, kind of want to work with us, which is great. So there's definitely the website. We're also on socials, so Facebook and Instagram. We're not super active on those channels. We do get some regular content, maybe up once or twice a week, but we try and go for the quality over quantity. We're not your regular posters and sharers, but when we do put something forward, we think if there's going to be real value to our clients. So that'd be the best channels.
Well, thank you so much for your precious time and your valuable insights. Appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your wisdom about podiatry and running and feet situations. So Matt, I also encourage you to look back in a couple of months or whatever and do something again, because we only got a narrow perspective of your wide range of knowledge in the area of foot health. So there you have it, folks. Matt Bull from Up and Running Podiatry. We'll have his links in the notes under the video, and thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much, Freddie. I really appreciate it.